Welcome friends, I am Dr. V.K. Chauhan, homeopathic physician, and we are revising homeopathic remedy Calcarea carbonica. Here we are dealing with the part 5, Allen's Keynote, a comparative study with Herings guiding symptoms of our materia medica. This is a very important study, comparative study, and this is good for the 4th BHMS students and interns. So let us see the plan of Herring's guiding symptoms. These are 48 sections he has used where he deals with the remedy, and this remedy which he deals here has got certain distinctions. Like in this particular work, he uses 4 grades to denote the importance of or the value of the symptoms. Next important issue which we come across in this particular work is that he has used clinically this remedy in certain conditions, and whenever he came across that there was a positive result, these are the rubrics or symptoms or the PQR symptoms which were clinically verified by Hering, they only taken up for this study. Before Hering's comparative materia medica, we had only academic materia medica which have been based on the proving, but this is the first materia medica which is based on the clinical verification, and this is the fundamental base for Allen's keynote symptom. Allen has taken up symptoms from here only, and these are selective symptoms according to his clinical use, what might be he has done in his clinical practice, and he produced them in Allen's Keynote, which is a very important book for us. In day-to-day practice, we are going to read and clinically bedside use this work. So this is the fundamental background of that particular work which we have been looking into and comparing with. Please remember that the whole remedy has been given in 48 sections, and each symptom has been evaluated in terms of its importance into the 4 distinct value system: first grade, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade. Now let us see what happens when we talk about the Allen's keynote. We come across the first PQR: leukophlegmatic, blonde hair, light complexion, blue eyes, fair skin, tendency to obesity in youth. These are the somatic features of the Calcarea carb the Allen has given. Let us see what is the reference value for this symptom is present in Hering's guiding symptom. We find stage of life and constitution, section 47, and this is the first grade representation: leukophlegmatic temperament in childhood. Leukophlegmatic, light complexion, blue eyes, blonde hair, fair skin. Young who grow too fat and heavy. Nervous, hemorrhoidal, plethoric, and lymphatic constitution, disposed to grow fat. And we see the next chapter 4, outer head. Here also we find some important symptoms in the first grade representation. Children leukophlegmatic, very fat and of leaden weight, abdomen hard and distended, with sour smelling diarrhea. Now friends, let us go to the second PQR. Here we find it is psoric constitutions, pale, weak, timid, easily tired when walking. This is a somatic component and temperamental component, where temperament is timid. Rest tells us about the psoric markers of physical attributes. Here we will compare from where the symptom has come: stage of life and constitution, chapter number 47. Second grade representation: pale, leukophlegmatic, weakly, timid persons. Upper face, chapter 8, we find pale, lean face with deep set eyes surrounded by the dark rings. Friends, let us go to the PQR3, disposed to grow fat, corpulent, unweightly. This is a diathesis, and we find reference in the stage of life and constitution, chapter 47. First grade representation: nervous, hemorrhoidal, plethoric, and lymphatic constitution, disposed to grow fat. Second grade representation is persons inclined to grow fat, tissue chapter 4, T4 tells us about second grade representation, tendency to obesity, especially in children and young people. Now we go to the PQR4. Here we find children with red face, flabby muscles, who sweat easily and take cold readily in consequences. It is a constitutional symptom belonging to somatic and diathesis aspect. And reference is from Stage of Life Constitution, section 47. And first grade representation, children self-willed, fair, plump, fat, flabby with red face, sweat easily and readily take cold, large head and abdomen, open fontanelles and sutures, and crooked legs. We go to the PQR5, large heads and abdomens, fontanelles and sutures open, bones soft, develop very slowly. And this is a constitutional symptom, somatic aspect. Outer head, chapter 4, we get the reference, grade 1 representation, open fontanelles with large head and much sweating of the same. Children, leukophlegmatic, very fat and lean weight, abdomen hard and distended with sour smelling diarrhea. We get further reference in the Stage of Life and Constitution, section 47 or chapter 47. Children's first grade representation is there, self-willed, fair, plump, fat, flabby with red face, sweat easily and readily take cold. And then comes this particular reference symptom, large heads and abdomen, open fontanelles and sutures and crooked legs. Friends, see the PQR6 from Allen's, curvature of bones, especially spine and long bones, extremities crooked, deformed, bones irregularly developed, and this tells us about the diathesis part. Now we see the reference in the tissue, chapter 44, and this is the first grade representation, curvature of bones, especially of spine and long bones, and then extremities deformed and crooked. Stage of Life and Constitution, chapter 47 also provides us some first grade representation of this. Children self-willed, fair, plump, fat, flabby, with red face, sweat easily and readily takes cold, large heads and abdomen, open fontanelles and sutures, and crooked legs. Here this small line is there. Now let us go to the PQR7. It tells us head sweats profusely while sleeping, wetting the pillow far around. And it is a particular general symptom. We'll get reference, outer head, chapter 4. Sweating of the head, very profuse, rolling down face in large bead-like drops. The pillow is wet from some distance around the child's head. Nocturnal sweat of head, open fontanelles with large head and much sweating. Now we go to the PQR8, profuse perspiration mostly on the back of head and neck, or chest and upper part of the body. And we find in the outer head, chapter 4 only, second grade representation, face and head bathed in cold and running off in little streams. Sweat on back of head and neck in evening, profuse sweat on head. So let us go to the next PQR, and next PQR is difficult and delayed dentition with characteristic head sweats and open fontanelles. This is the diathesis part, and we get reference in the chapter 10, teeth and gums. Difficult dentition and different conditions where Herring has used this remedy. These are the clinical conditions where he has written here. And Stage of Life and Constitution, chapter 47, we get again first grade representation, diseases of children, especially during dentition. Now we come to the PQR 10, during either sickness or convalescence. Great longing for eggs, craves indigestible things, aversion to meat. And this is the part which is very important for Cal Carb in terms of desire and aversion. Let us see from where This information has been taken up from Herring's guiding symptom. We come to the appetite, thirst, desire, aversion, chapter 14. And this is the first great representation here. Appetite poor, with an aversion to meat and craving for boiled eggs. Now we get second great representation again here. Great desire for eggs, wine, sour, salt or sweet things. Sugar disagrees. So what next we find? Again, first great representation, longing for egg, particularly with children, in sickness or during convalescence, even before they are able to swallow, longing for boiled eggs. Craves indigestible things, chalk and coal. It is a second grade representation here. Aversion to meat and warm food is also a second grade representation here. Aversion to meat is a first grade representation. Aversion to smoking tobacco is second grade representation in Herring's guiding symptom. Friends, let us go to the PQR 11. Acidity of the digestive tract, sour eructation, sour vomiting, sour stool, and sour odor of the whole body. This is a particular and physical general in combination. We come across the references in the chapter 16, hiccup, belching, nausea and vomiting. First grade representation, sour vomiting, especially during dentition. Second grade representation is vomit has sour smell, occasional acidity of stomach. Urinary organs we find acrid or sour smelling urine, and tissue, chapter 44, sour taste in the mouth or food, sour vomiting especially with children during dentition, also sour diarrhea accompanying affections of the mucous membrane. So these are very important representing symptoms we find in the Herring's guiding symptoms. So let us go to the next, and the next is the PQR 12. Girls who are fleshy, plethoric and grow too rapidly. This is a constitutional type. Stage of life and constitution, chapter 47 tells us something about the rubric here, or the symptom here is represented in the second grade. Puberty, girl who has begun with the menses too early, too profuse, fat yet chlorotic, plethoric girls and amenorrhea. Girls at 16, fair complexion, strumous family, excited, easily excited to tears. These are certain symptoms which he is reproducing here, which have been used in his clinical practice. And that kind of a constitutional or somatic attributes with the patient came. Light-haired youth growing rapidly in case of tuberculosis, young who grew too fast, too fat and heavy, and ozina and scrofula. These are the conditions where Herring has been using this remedy, and we find it is a first grade representation. Now friends, we go to the PQR 13, menstruation too early, too profuse, too long lasting, with subsequent amenorrhea and chlorosis with menses scanty or suppressed. It is a particular general in female sexual organs, and we come across the reference in chapter 23, female sexual organs. Menses too early, too late, too long, too profuse, and the conditions are given where this particular symptom has been used in his clinical practice. And same time we go to the next, and that is profuse menstruation, too frequent menstruation, consequence anemia, leading to anemia, and this is a second grade representation here. Now again, second grade representation, we find too profuse catamania. Menses profuse, membranous, dark colored, tardy at and or premature, mostly periods, regular, copious and dark, frequent menses with weakness in legs, menses lasting 2 weeks with interval of 2 weeks, menses irregular every 5 months. So we have now come to the PQR 14, Woman menses too early, too profuse, too, and feet habitually cold and damp, as if they had cold damp stockings, continually cold in the bed. This is a particular general in especially related to the females, and we find the reference in female sexual organs, chapter 23 in Ellen's in Herring's guiding symptom. He tells about in the first grade symptom, menses too early, last too long, too profuse, lower limbs, we find cold, damp feet, and conditions where he has used this particular symptom. And then we find sensation in feet and leg as if she had cold, damp stockings. So we can see that this is a first grade representation here. Next, we go to the PQR 15. The least mental excitement causes a profuse return of menstrual flow. This is a element from symptom, and we get reference in the mind section. Chapter 1, we find first grade representation. Excitement brings on a dysmenorrhea. Least excitement endangers return of catamania, causes metrorrhagia. Female sexual organs, chapter number 23, we get first grade representation here. The least excitement brings on the return of profuse menstruation, catamania, metrorrhagia. Friends, we are dealing with PQR 16, fears she will lose her reason or that people will observe her mental confusion. This is a mental general, and we find the reference in mind section, chapter 1, first grade representation, fears she will lose her reason or the people will observe her confusion of mind. Other features in the mental section, we find fear that something sad or terrible will happen, fear of death, of consumption, of misfortune, of being alone. Child is afraid of everything he sees. We are taking up here the PQR 17, lung diseases of the tall, slender, rapidly growing youth, upper third of the right lung, oftener the guide to the constitutional remedy, then phosphorus. This is a constitution and diathesis we come across, and we find the reference in the inner chest and lungs, chapter number 28, acts upon the upper and middle portion of the right lung. That is the location of the involvement of the lung tissue, first grade representation. Lungs, left lung is also affected in case of pneumonia, pain in the right side with cough, tuberculous consumption, and stage of life and constitution. Chapter number 47, we have light-haired youth growing rapidly, and these are the people who are treated for tuberculosis. Now we come across the PQR 18, diseases arising from defective assimilation, imperfect ossification, and difficulty in learning to walk, especially weak musculature. This is a diathesis, and we find corresponding information in tissue section, chapter number 44. Poor assimilation. Second grade representation, tardy development of bony tissue. First grade representation, osteomalacia with decubitus. Second grade representation, softening of bones, fontanelles remaining open too long and a skull very large. Curvatures of the bone, especially of spine and long bones, extremities deformed, crooked. We go to the PQR 19, rawness of the sole of feet from perspiration, blisters, and offensive foot sweat. It is a particular general in the foot region, and we find reference in the fever section, chapter 40, cold and sticky sweat on the feet. Lower limbs, we find chapter 33, offensive sweat on the feet making sole raw. Second grade representation, spreading blisters on the sole of feet. Second grade representation again. We come across PQR 20, longing for fresh air. When in a room which inspires benefits and strengthens, similar to pulsatilla in sulfur, it is a physical general, and we find The reference in the temperature and weather section 39 in Herring's guiding symptom. This is a fourth grade representation here. Inspiration of the fresh air was beneficial and strengthening. PQR 21 tells us about the coldness general of single parts, head, stomach, abdomen, feet and legs. Aversion to cold open air goes right through her. Sensitive to cold, damp air, great liability to take cold. Opposite of sulfur, this is a physical general given in Ellen's keynote, and we find corresponding information under the chapter 39, temperature and weather. First grade representation, aversion to open air. The least cold air goes right through. This is the fourth grade representation here, great sensitiveness to damp cold air. In fever section 40, we come across second grade representation, coldness of face, hands and feet of body. She feels a sort of inward coldness, again second grade representation, icy coldness in and on head, second grade representation. And we find in chapter 19, abdomen and loin, feeling of cold in abdomen is second grade representation. Again, smell and nose. Chapter 7, we find a representation which is second grade, great liability to catarrh. These are the important symptoms we are coming across here. Now let us go to the PQR 22. It tells us sweat of the single parts, head, scalp wet, cold, nape of neck, chest, axilla, sexual organs, hands, knees and feet. It is a physical general here, and we find reference in Herring's guiding symptom, chapter 40, fever. Partial sweat is the first grade, head, scalp, wet, cold, wet pillow, far around, male organs, second grade representation, nape of the neck and chest is first grade, in axilla, second grade, hands, first grade, knees, feet, second grade. PQR 23 tells us about the pit of stomach swollen like an inverted saucer and painful to pressure. This is a particular general, and we come across in the section 17, scrobitulum and stomach, first grade representation. Pit of stomach swollen like a saucer turned bottom up, painful to pressure, and conditions where Herring has prescribed this particular symptom. Bloating of region of stomach, compelling him to undo his clothing. This is also a first grade representation here. Now we go to the PPR 24, uremic or other diseases brought on by standing in cold, damp pavements or working while standing in cold weather, muddlers or workers in the cold clay. This is ailments from, and we come across references in the mind section, chapter 1. Mania sees many cures crowding around him and fights them off from chilling feet and leg in the potter's clay. This is a very important symptom which is given second grade representation in Herring's guiding symptom. Teeth and gums, we find chapter 10, toothache during pregnancy with determination of blood to head from taking cold. This is the exciting cause. Urinary organs, chapter 21, chronic strangury from standing in cold pavement, causation specific, second grade representation, and nerves, chapter 36, we have locomotor ataxia after exposure to wet and cold after sexual excess. This is also a causation specific representing symptoms. Second grade representation is present here. Now we come across PQR 25, feels better in every way when constipated. This is a physical general, friends. And we get the reference in the stool and rectum section, chapter 20, feels best when constipated. Second grade representation, have you seen light? And we come across PQR 26, stool has to be removed mechanically. It is a particular general, and we get section Stool and rectum, chapter 20. The representation is second grade representation, hard, thick, scanty, and evacuated with difficulty or complete constipation. And then the next line is the fourth grade representation, must extract excrements with fingers. Friends, we are coming to PQR 27, painless hoarseness, worse in the morning. It is a particular general, and we'll get the reference in voice and larynx, trachea and bronchial section 25, chapter 25. First grade representation, painless hoarseness, could scarcely speak, worse in morning, hoarse, hardly audible voice. And here we come across PQR 28, desire to be magnetized. The one remedy is in reference phosphorus. It is a physical general, and we find the reference in the nerves section, chapter 36, great desire to be magnetized. It is a third grade representation here. Please see. So friends, thank you very much for your patient listening, and I hope you will be benefited with this particular information. Thank you so much.